In my previous video, I showed you what you would need in order to complete a wet felted project, and I also laid out the wool fibers on the bubble wrap. Now we're going to continue the process. This is the wool fiber that I laid out before. I did have this piece of tulle covering it, but I've taken that off because we're going to make a design on top of this fiber that we have laid out. And I have some pieces of wool over here that I'm going to use for my design. So we're going to start that now. I'm going to take this wool I have over here and make a flower on top of this pink fiber. So I'm just going to take pieces that I think would look good together. I'm going to take some green. Actually, I think I'm going to take some of this green and kind of mix it together a little. And I'm going to start to make a stem just by laying that out on the fiber. And I think I'll mix a little more. I think I like that. And make some leaves. Coming off the stem. And I think I'll add a little bit more there. And I think my flower is going to be blue. So I'm going to take some blue and I'm just going to lay it across the top of the stem in different directions. Like that. When you're wet felting, you kind of end up with a watercolor look. It's not a real defined design, and it will shift a little bit through the wet felting process, but I usually like how it comes out. You really can't predict how it is exactly going to come out, but I'm usually happy with it. It's always a surprise. This is going to be the center of the flower, so I'm just mushing together some of this butterscotchy yellow color. Put that in the center like that. And you could basically stop right there and begin the wet felting process, or you could add some little swirls of color around if you wanted. Just lay some pieces like that, like that. Oh, let's put some white. I haven't used any white. Just for extra color. Maybe even swirl some up, little swirls. Put that right there. Little swirl of butterscotch right there. Okay. I'm going to call that good for now. Now that the design has been laid out, it's time to begin the wet felting process. Now we're done designing, and it's time to turn these wisps of wool into felt. So first of all, we need to take our tool and position it again over your project. And this is going to stay on there. You will remove it now and then to adjust things as you go along, but until it's completely wet, we're not going to take it off. Okay, at this point, we're going to take our hot soapy water, and I have put mine into a milk jug, and I have poked holes in the cover so that I can sprinkle the water out onto my project without dumping a massive amount of water all at once, because you don't want to have puddles of water, but you do want it all wet. So I'm going to start by sprinkling some water. And this is quite hot, but hot water and soap are the key here to make our fibers felt, and agitation of the fibers. So first we're going to just press this water down into the wool. Okay. And I'm going to put a little more. Don't go crazy, just you want everything wet but not puddles. No puddles. If you find you do have them as you go along, you can just sop them up with a towel and keep going. Okay, I'm going to pull up my tool just to make sure it's not sticking too much. We're going to do this every now and then because the fibers do like to stick to the tool at first. Okay, I'm going to put that back down. Sprinkle a little more water. I see some dry spots. Press that in. Okay, now at this point, you can pick your tool up. You might have to scrape your fibers off here at the edge, but then it'll pull up easy. And I'm going to tuck my ends in. You can leave them wispy like this. See how the ends are very wispy? Or you can tuck them in for a more finished look. So I'm going to start just turning this under along all of the edges. Okay, I've finished turning under all of the edges. And now I'm going to put my tool back on. I'm going to add some more hot water. Things cool off as you go along, and you have this hot water handy to keep adding to it, and it does need more water anyway. It's not as wet as it needs to be yet. So I've added more hot water, and at this stage I also can start rubbing gently now that things are slightly holding together. I'm not going to disturb the design, and I'm going to rub over the entire design. You can use two hands at once, like this, but very lightly. Later, we're going to be able to get more aggressive with it. But right now, just a light rubbing. Just add hot water as you feel you need it. You'll be able to tell that some areas aren't quite as wet as others, and if they're poofy, they probably aren't totally wet. I'm going to lift my tool again and replace it, just to make sure things aren't sticking too much. If you don't do this now and then, you might find that things are really attached to the tool, and it's going to be hard to get off without disturbing your design. And sometimes you'll see little bits of fiber come up through the tool, but just put them aside. That doesn't hurt anything. It's just what happens. You can get it off your fingers. Okay, I've been rubbing lightly for several minutes, and now I'm going to add more hot water and rub a little more aggressively because it can stand it. So now I'm going to really start rubbing. Okay, I've been rubbing for several minutes again in an aggressive fashion, adding more hot water as I felt things cooling off too much. It doesn't have to stay hot the entire time, but some warmth is good to keep some warmth in it the entire time if you can. Sometimes I haven't and things still came out okay. Now we're going to do what we call a pinch test, and that's to see if the fibers are one that's looking pretty good. They're pulling up a little. If you can see wisps coming up, it's not bad though. Then you still need to do some more work. So we are going to continue this. Okay, a few more minutes of rubbing, and that looks pretty good. You don't pull up as much. So now what we're going to do is flip our design over, and you can actually pick it up. You don't need to worry that it's going to come apart. And I'm just going to flip it over. And we're going to rub on this side. Oh, got some puddles there, don't I? I'm going to sop up a little bit of that because I do want to add more hot water, and I don't want to add to what's already too much. So, sop some of that up. Add some hot water. Now if you find things are sliding around like mine are right now, it doesn't seem to be, the tool is moving around, you can put some soap on your hands or rub it right on the tool, and things will be more slippery. Now we're going to do this for several minutes. Okay, I've rubbed several minutes on the back side of the design, and I'm going to flip it back over again. So we'll take the tool off, grab the corners. I think I'll grab from this end, easier, and flip it back over. See how sturdy it's getting? Okay, so we're going to cover this back up and put a little more hot water and rub a few minutes more, and then it'll be time to start the next part of our process, and that will be rolling it in the bamboo placemat and pool noodle. And I will see you back in my next video to continue this.